excited, ready to go after new signings, so we are ready.
Very excited, yeah. It's been a positive pre-season from us. You can't beat the first day, the first game, super excited.
Now we have a new chapter, a new challenge. I hope we will win, first of all. It's a new experience, and we believe that we can hunt every single point, and we'll do our best for that.
Big tests, but we're ready, and we're looking forward to it.
Hello everybody, and so we hail the dawning of a brand new season, for which, as ever, for the next few hours anyway, we cling on to the vain hope that 2025-26 will be streets ahead of 2024-25. Our opening engagement takes us up north to the mouth of the River Wear, where we'll be hosted by newly promoted Sunderland. It's a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff, for which saints be praised. The trains look okay as well. It's almost as if the powers that be haven't cottoned on to the fact that football's back yet. Give them a week or two and you'll be delayed faster than you can say, replacement bus service. You mark my words. So Sunderland then. Well, as mentioned, they got promoted by way of the playoff system after they finished in 4th place. The regular season saw them well off the pace for the automatic promotion places, which were sewn up by Leeds and Burnley, a long way from home. However, they had amassed enough points early enough to ensure that playoff qualification was assured well before the end of the season, which, as it turned out, may have been just as well given that they lost their last 5 league games on the trot. During the playoffs, though, they returned to winning ways, dispatching Fat Boys Coventry 3-2 on aggregate, before turning over Sheffield United 2-1 in the final at Wembley, for which the Blades' end was half empty. Clearly all that campaigning for fairness in football will have taken a lot out of the supporters of a club which is still sitting on a big suspended points deduction over their policy of signing players from other clubs and not remembering to pay for them. As you'll be aware, newly promoted sides either go mad with the chequebook once promoted, or they make do with what they have, with one eye on receiving a parachute payment on their return to the lower orders. Much to Daisy's disdain, Sunderland have signed 10 players on a permanent deal, plus another one on loan at the time of writing. The now Mrs. Percy had a good time of it in the last window, but is having to earn her keep as the new season starts. This she does by just writing about the players she finds interesting, or perhaps in this case, slightly less boring. The first brand new arrival, French midfielder Lafay, was already there on loan, was Senegalese midfielder Habib Diarra. Diarra cost £30 million to secure from Strasbourg and has spent most of his life in France, picking up age group honours up to under 21 level, whereupon he switched allegiance to the Senegal of his birth. Transferred allegiances and the African continent feature heavily amongst their summer signings. Belgian-born Noah Siddiqui is another who gained international honours for one country, Belgium, before switching to what it says here is Dr. Congo. Are you sure that's right? The defender, who can operate either as a full-back or central defender, arrived from Union Saint-Gilloise, having come through the Anderlecht youth system. One of the later African arrivals was our old mate Arthur Masuaku, who pitched up on a free from Besiktas the other day. In his time with us, he was one of those players who achieved minor cult status in spite of his talents, rather than because of them. The "he never gives the ball away" chant carried irony to the extreme, for example. Despite his limitations, he always seemed to play with a smile on his face, and of course he'll forever be remembered for that freak goal that gave us a 3-2 win over Chelsea a while back. It'd be nice to see him start, not least because I suspect that Bowen would be licking his lips at the prospect. Despite being promoted last season, they weren't over-prolific in the goal-scoring charts. Wilson Isidore was their top scorer with a less than whelming 13 goals, despite the confirmation of his move from sanctions-bound Zenit St. Petersburg becoming permanent in February. With one mind on that, remember those last 5 games yielded just the 1 goal, they brought in Chelsea youngster Mark Guéhi on a loan for the season. The Spanish kid already has a European hat-trick to his name, albeit against Shamrock Rovers. He made only the 3 appearances for Chelsea in the league last season. They're hoping that the ammunition to supply Guéhi will come from a pair of wingers, again of African origin. Right winger Chemsdine Talbi hopped across the North Sea from Club Brugge for a fee of £16.5 million, which will potentially rise to £19 million with unspecified add-ons. He's been capped at junior levels by Belgium, but has declared himself the Morocco of his forebears, though his first cap is still awaited at the time of writing. The other flank awaits Ivorian Simon Adingra, who arrived for £21 million from Brighton. He was part of the Ivorian squad that took home the African Cup of Soup in 2023, and he'll probably be with them at next year's tournament. At this point, Daisy got a wee bit tired and said, "Isn't it time for the wild and wacky world of association football?" So with that, we'll move on to the wild and wacky world of association football for the first time this season. And with every new season, there are some daft new kit designs. Top of the list must be the Forest Green Rovers leopard print design made out of recycled vegans or some such stuff. The design, we are told, was inspired by nature, though in fact one is immediately put in mind of the interior designs of Derek Trotter and indeed our own chairman, such as the dreadfulness. Then down in non-league, Whitby Town's change kit was inspired by the Bram Stoker novel and subsequent innumerable film adaptations of Dracula. Bats, Whitby Abbey and text from the book all featuring the purple and black monstrosity, which presumably came as the result of a particularly liquid brainstorming session by some consultants. However, it's not a new idea. Spurs were going to do something similar with regard to the world of cinema themselves. However, Walt Disney were reluctant to release the rights to the use of Mickey Mouse. Finally, I've received a press release referencing Sheffield United's third kit through the good offices of those nice people at Private Eye magazine. This mentions the kit referencing volatile nights out at the Hex nightclub. Now, I've got no idea what colour this kit is, but if there isn't something blood and vomit stained with the words "Leave him, Carly's not worth it" involved, I'd be supremely disappointed. And so to us. I guess you'd say that was a vaguely mixed pre-season. The win over Bournemouth in the US owed much to the Cherries' inability to hit a cow's backside with a banjo during the first 20 minutes or so. The new sponsor cup match was interesting though it was only in the second half that we started getting crosses in on a regular basis. We do need to improve that conversion rate though. Of course, this time of year, Mrs. Percy has to put in an extra shift as we've got our own new signings to consider. Well, sometimes. So welcome then, in addition to the already here Tadibo, Messrs Diouf, Walker-Peters, Hermanson and Wilson to the first team squad. Diouf, usually referred to as Malik Diouf, arrived for £19 million from Slavia Prague. After starting his career in youth football in his native Senegal, he upsticks to Norway, obviously, where he had a season with Tromsø. This brought him to the attention of Slavia Prague, again obviously, for whom he signed in January 2024. He featured in the Slavia side that won the Czech League last season before pitching up with us this summer. He's a full international for Senegal, having gained 4 caps since his debut in September 2024. Diouf's Senegal travails is probably one of the reasons for the arrival of Kyle Bob Danvers Walker-Peters. Walker-Peters arrived from downwards bound Southampton on a free. He's capable of providing his services as a full or wing back on either flank. And with another African Cup of Soup on the way in January, he'll see a lot of game time with Diouf and probably Wan-Bissaka, who's thrown his hat in with Dr. Congo for international purposes, likely to miss significant game time in the new year. Between the sticks, we plundered the carcass of Leicester to bolster our options. Enter Mads Hermansen, whose transfer from the Foxes cost us £20 million. He's been described as comfortable on the ball, which is a prerequisite for goalkeepers these days. He's also noted for shot stopping and apparently has a good record with penalty kicks. He was unveiled before the crowd pre-match on Saturday, which must have made post-match fun, with Areola, the man he's ostensibly here to replace, saving 2 spot kicks to hand us the Susan Boyle Cup. Also at the time of writing, the final arrival so far has been Callum Wilson. With Antonio being released, clearly they needed another player to keep the physio busy. He's one of those players who always used to score against us. Punching the ball into the net from an offside position was a particular favourite. The annoying thing that leaps to mind is that if he tries that on for us, it looks bound to be spotted. Now, it's said to have been a cheap option, and I mean no disrespect to the lad, but I'd rather hope for someone a little less close to my own age to come in on the striker front. Fulcrook has looked good in pre-season, but his own injury record has been checkered, hasn't it? And we're only one hamstring away from having Wilson as our sole option up front. I think I've probably written this every season since I can remember, with only the names changed from time to time. On the injury front for this weekend, we're down to Somerville, whose bizarre hamstring problem seems to have been going on for so long, it may well have been the first recorded hamstring problem in history. With him not having featured in any of the friendlies, we'll be looking at the end of September for him. Other than that, it's a full squad. And for the prediction, well, they always go on about the extra boost that newly promoted teams get for their first few games, but the performances don't always reflect accepted wisdom on these matters. One only has to look at the battering we gave Forest on their return, only to lose 1-0 thanks to a combination of poor finishing and the usual dreadful refereeing. Okay, so we lost that one, but the point on performances is still valid, I'd say. This is one of those ones where quietening the crowd will be the order of the day as they come to face some harsh realities. So the £2.50 that I was going to spend on a present for Daisy to celebrate 4 weeks of wedded bliss will instead be sent over to Mr. Winston's online digital turf accountancy business and wagered on a 2-1 away win. Enjoy the game.